What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Epic 7 video. In this one, let's talk about the Artena's equipment crafting event for the year 2023. So if this is your first Artena's crafting event, guys, hopefully you haven't already done it, as there's still looks like quite a while left, over 2 weeks left on this event. I'm going to go over all the stuff that most people might already know. If you've been playing this Epic 7 game for a while, this might be your second, third, fourth, fifth event, as this has been going on for a while. But in the year 2023, a lot of stuff happened middle to late of last year that I think we need to talk about in terms of the best choices between crafting. So we'll go over everything as well as the new and updated info. So even those of you that are veterans, I might be able to share with y'all some updated tips, tricks, all that good stuff. And I think this is, as we all know, or most of us should know, one of the best ways, if not the best way, to get just like guaranteed pieces of gear for end game, the absolute end game. And even if you low roll every single roll, as long as you're not already end game, like a late game legend climber, even if you low roll everything, the piece of gear will still look amazing because you're going to do everything correct. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching. Let's break it down. All right, guys, we're going to go through this step by step. I waited to start my piece so that I can share the info with y'all. We can run it down. Y'all can actually see what I'm going through. And then early to mid game players, I'll talk with y'all specifically. Late game players, hopefully I can give y'all some advanced tips that things have changed, like I mentioned at the start of the video. So let's go ahead and start with step one, which is select a set. So this is why this set or this event is so good. Just like equipment conversion gems, we get to choose the equipment crafting that we want. And for new to mid game players, guys, I would suggest to pick a universal set that will work on a lot of different units. So avoid niche sets like attack set, defense set, even things like injury, especially things like revenge. These sets you're not really going to use except for like special cases. And even then, let's go for something universal that will work on a lot of different units, and that will just be very, very good for your account that you can just pass around between different styles of units. So what I would suggest for my new to mid-game players, pick a universal set like speed set, destruction set, newly buffed, well, most recently buffed, very, very strong as well. And then things like penetration set are very, very good too. Ultimately, try to find out what kind of playstyle you are. Sometimes Epic 7 will determine your playstyle for you because that's just how your gear rolls if you're mega unlucky. But maybe you naturally gravitate towards like a more aggressive, fast style, maybe a cleaver style. Then, of course, you're going to pick things like, yeah, like I mentioned, speed, destruction, penetration set. If you're more of a tanky player, like you want to, you know, tank down or lifesteal back, you take hits and you can survive. Things like lifesteal set, counter set are going to be very, very strong. Possibly even immunity set, but that's PvP only, so I would avoid that unless you know what you're doing. Yeah, things like lifesteal and counter are very good. Speed set is still great for all types of players. So this is what I'm trying to mention for universal styles. Speed set is very strong. Even if you're not going for first turn, guys, even tanky, slow players like myself still want this because it's a turn-based game. Turn orders for most units determine, you know, that's going to be damage as well, or at least like healing. You got to take your turns, right, to use your skills. So speed set is always going to be good. This is never a bad decision. Early to mid game players, find out your play style, or at least what you think you want to do, and then just pick a universal set. My recommendations are things like speed, destruction, pen set, maybe lifesteal and counter if you think you're that kind of banshee style tank down player. Now late game players, right, you guys, this is where I want you guys to just take a look at your account. If you're already venturing into things like PvP, maybe you're at the champion level, challenger level, you want to break that next step, start looking into your style as well, just like I told the new game players, but take it a step further and figure out what kind of things you need to help your account out. Because I'm assuming if you're a late game player, you already have a good foundation. You have a lot of speed set, a lot of destruction set, or maybe you're a banshee player, you have a lot of effect resist, lifesteal counter sets on your account. Try to pick something that you're not farming a lot. For me, that's definitely things like Katie, so pen set, very, very good for me. Maybe you don't farm injury set and you really want that injury Alencia, injury Bellion to top off with like your ancient inheritance gear. Start branching into stuff like that because you already have that foundation. So to recap, new game players, early game players, pick a universal set that will work on almost all your units and typically damage dealers as well. I'll cover more specifics on that, guys. General rule of thumb, try to pick a damage dealing set over a defensive or support set. Things like always craft left side gear, but we'll talk about those as we get to those specific sets or steps, I should say. And then my late game players, start getting a little experimental. Figure out what exact niche units you need to gear up to fit whatever you need. Maybe that's PvE, maybe that's RTA like I mentioned, injury sets, possibly even barrier set, torrent set for you crazies out there. But yeah, just try to pick a set that will really work for you. One last tip that my late game players may not be aware of, if you haven't already tried out the new revamped endgame raid mode, right, the Labyrinth, then there is a very, very nice penetration damage dealing set neck that you guys can grab that has very, if not perfect, substats for a lot of damage dealers. So that I'm not saying not to use penetration set, but maybe try to avoid picking pen set with a necklace, for example, as you can kind of grab that from the raid, and then for the Artena crafting event, you can choose something else. But I'm going to follow my own advice here, and I said, you know, sets like pen, speed, destruction are all great. I'm going to go with the pen set, as I'm usually a Banshee farmer, so I don't want to farm too much Katie's. I'd rather get it from events like this. So let's choose that up and move on to the next step. Sorry for the interruption, guys, but if you can, please consider hitting the subscribe button if this video or any of my past videos have helped you out. On this channel, we're really trying to boost up those sub numbers. It would mean a lot to me. And as you guys might have noticed, this video is sponsored by Amazon Appstore. So if you guys were going to buy some of those juicy packs, like that new rank up pack, that's super value, go ahead and use the Amazon Appstore and the Amazon coins to save yourself a lot of money. 3 easy steps, guys. Download the Amazon Appstore, choose any of your favorite games. We're going to talk about Epic 7 here. Download the Epic 7 app through the App Store, and then start loading up those Amazon coins and just save a bunch of money. It's that simple, no strings attached. If you were going to spend anyways, guys, why don't we save some money together, and you'll also help support me and the channel at the same time. Let's get back to the regular schedule program. So step 1 was to pick the set. Step 2 now is to pick the individual piece of gear. I'm going to hit y'all with my first universal rule of thumb, and that's for the equipment crafting event, the Artena crafting event. Always choose a right side piece of gear. So left side, just look at your inventory. Whenever you hear the terms left side piece of gear, right side piece of gear, left side is weapon, helmet, or armor, right? The 3 left boxes on an inventory screen. And then the right side is necklace, ring, or boots. Always choose a necklace, ring, or boots, as their main stats are way more beneficial. These are harder to roll in general, and they'll give you more bang for your buck. Now, to take things a step further, this one I don't really follow, but some people do. You can save a little bit of gold, guys, by crafting a necklace or ring, as in the workshop, boots are actually the same cost or less of a cost than crafting necklace or rings. Just a minor thing if y'all want to take advantage of that. Min-max, I don't really follow it. Just make sure, guys, you can't go wrong if you craft a right side piece of gear. Never craft a left side piece of gear, no matter if you're new to late game, at least in my opinion. So early to mid game players, just pick a right side piece. I'm not going to spend too long on this. Maybe you guys can identify which one you want the most of. For example, if you need like crit damage, necklaces is your main source of that. Health or attack for rings, and then boots primarily speed, at least in the beginning. Late game players. Now this is where we get a little bit more fancy with it. My main rule of thumb is just look at your inventory screen, find out which set you want, right? Sort. So if I chose pen set here, guys, right? I go by pen set, and I'll show you guys why I need certain pieces. My pen set gear is very lacking compared to like my speed or Banshee, like lifesteal destruction gear, for example. So I can actually, I have most necks. I mentioned that you can get things like the raid neck as well. This is an example of the raid neck. I have 3 rings and three boots, so I'm going to go for a boot or a ring here. And you know what? I'm just going to pick the boots because I think I remember one of my units needing an extra pair of pen boots. So for late game players, just look through your account. When you figure out which set you want, just identify which piece of gear you are lacking most, or if you have a specific piece in mind. Remember, guys, right? Crit chance or crit damage for necklace. Typically, as we're picking a damage dealing set, which I'll talk about in the next step here. Rings is more like health, attack, maybe even defense, depending if you're building a unit like Karina, just for as an example. And then boots is primarily speed. Late game players, maybe y'all are getting crazy going for something like attack or health, but typically boots are mainly for speed. New players always pick speed on those until you know what you're doing. For my like Banshee late game counter players. Okay, so we're gonna choose pen set boots, and let's move on to step 3. So I kind of already covered the main stats in the previous step, but just to recap real quick, if we're going for next, usually we want to go for a damage dealing unit. So crit damage or crit chance typically, maybe sometimes attack percent or defense percent if it's a specific unit. Rings, typically it's like health percent, attack percent, maybe defense percent for those defense scaling units. And then boots are typically, new players just pick speed in the beginning. Then later on, if you have a 0 speed unit or you want someone in particular that doesn't need a lot of speed, or you can get speed subs elsewhere, then you can go for something like attack percent for a mega damage dealer, health percent for a more tanky unit, etc. But just pick speed in the beginning, and that's what I'm going to go with, as I still always need more speed boots, especially speed pen boots. So let's move on to the final step, step 4. So here we are at the final step, and this is where I want you all to be the most patient. You have a lot of time. We still have 2 weeks as of this video, and you want to just stock up, spend those energy, get that points, and wait as long as possible until you get subs that are good. Because like I mentioned at the start of the video, even if you low roll everything, as long as you're not already having like insane amount of, like your gear quality is insane, the newer to mid game to even late game players, no matter what, if you pick the perfect subs here in the first step, even if you low roll everything, it'll still be a viable piece of gear. Maybe not for your best units, but somewhere. And for newer players, no matter what, it's going to be an insane piece of gear, probably your best piece of gear, at least at the start. So while I roll some of these, let's recap the rule of thumbs, right guys? Go for a damage dealing set. Hopefully you picked a universal set. Never pick any flat stats. Always pick a right side piece of gear and be as patient as possible. Don't settle for less. Go for something great, right? So something like this, for example, for me, might be something I might want. I know it's a little bit weird. Typically, you guys don't need any effect resist on damage dealers, but that's something personal, something I'm going for with my playstyle. So late game players, this is where you guys can branch into something niche, something that you specifically need for scenarios when you already have your foundational units. Newer players just goes for something very generic. So for boots, if you guys are copying me on boots, maybe you went for speed set boots. Same rule of thumb for a damage dealer. Let's go for crit damage, crit chance, attack percent, and then defense or health, right? If it was a ring or neck that doesn't have the speed as the main stat, then go for attack percent, crit damage, crit chance, and then speed, for example. Just if you guys need additional help on specifics, you guys can hit me up in the comments section. You guys can also stop by my Twitch stream or my Discord, and I'll help you all out. Just reach out to me. I'm definitely there. So one last thing as well, guys, try to lock in at least something in case you run out of time, you run out of points. At least you have something here. So this right side, I don't want to settle for this. It's kind of low rolled. You need to know your ranges as well, newer players. So this is a min roll and attack percent, for example, and the crit damage, and defense are pretty mid to low as well. So this is not something I'm going to keep, but in case I just somehow forget to play this event, I'm not going to. But let's say, for example, an emergency happens, I don't get to play. At least I have something as a backup emergency. So have something locked in that's at least okay, but don't settle. Try to go for something that's as close to perfect as possible. Okay, guys, I think we'll wrap up there so I don't overload y'all with info. Please reach out to me if you need help understanding something I may have glossed over, any extra specifics, and good luck on your rolls, guys. Let me know what you get. Let me know what you went for. Maybe you guys can help out other players deciding. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.